Guys, and welcome to Escape Wheel Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the Pagani design PD1753. So I received this watch for free from the Pagani design flagship store on AliExpress. I don't have to send the watch back, but you know the deal by now. That's not going to sway my review one way or the other. And if by the end of this review you find yourself wanting to pick one of these up, I will be leaving an affiliate link down in the video description, and I would really appreciate it if you use that link to purchase the watch. You don't pay any extra. This channel benefits a little bit from the small commission earned, and everyone goes home a winner, right? The current retail price for this watch is $109 US, and that's before any discounts or coupons or anything like that. Currently I'm seeing it for $92 US. So, I mean, you guys know that Pagani is almost always in a sale. So if you're seeing it for that $110 or so, just wait a little bit, a few days, and it'll probably drop down under $100 easy. During the big sales, I think I saw this one down to about 75, something like that. So really good discounts available for this watch. So just be patient and you can get yourself a pretty good deal on this. This watch is available in 3 different colorways, as you can see here. They all look really good, but I went with the dark blue version, and I do think it looks really good. It's very subtle, and we'll talk about that during the dial section. The watch case and bracelet is made of 316L stainless steel, has a sapphire crystal, a screw-down crown, screw-down case back, 100 meters of claimed water resistance, and it is powered by the Seiko NH35 automatic movement. So these integrated bracelet watches, they've been really popular this past year and a half, 2 years or so. And, it's one of those things where they either look really good or they don't look good at all. And I think Pagani actually did a really good job on this one. Obviously, copying a little bit of design from Tissot, but I think they did a really good job with the design of this watch. But how did they execute it? Did they execute it well? Are there any flaws with it? We'll get into all that in this full review. So I say let's get to it. Before we do, a quick wrist check today. Wearing the new Proxima. I can't remember the model number of this, but it is absolutely amazing. This one's coming up on the channel next. Fantastic watch. Absolutely fantastic. Pretty much has not left my wrist since I got it Christmas Eve. So, really an awesome watch. Very happy with it. All right, let's start with the dimensions. So these are listed as 38 millimeter watches, but that's not true. So there you can see the bezel is 38 millimeters. The case itself is 39.9 millimeters. Case thickness is 11.7. The width of the strap is about 27 millimeters. The case lug to lug is 45.1 millimeters. The overall length of it is 50.4 millimeters. So I know I'm not the only one that was disappointed with the false 38 millimeter claims. Pagani needs to stop doing that. They've done that in the past. But I'm still surprised at how well this wears. I had that Megalith PRX homage a while ago, and that one was, just too big for me. This one is just just a little bit smaller, a little bit thicker, and it wears a lot better. So I'm pretty happy with the way this thing wears. So I'm going to go outside right now and throw it on my wrist for you. So here it is on my 7.5 inch wrist, and as you can see, it wears really good. Pretty happy with the way this thing wears. Flat case, but that's kind of what you expect from this design, and I think it overall looks pretty good. The bracelet, you get lots of light play off the bracelet. It looks awesome, and it's pretty comfortable overall. I've got no major issues with the comfort of this thing. Nothing really digs into the wrist or anything like that, and I think it looks pretty good. You got nice finishing, nice chamfering, nice polished bits. It looks really good. My main issue is this little link here. You can see the kink in that very first link there. That's my main issue with it. I'm going to talk about that during the bracelet section a little bit more. That's my only real complaint with the way this thing wears. But otherwise, I think it looks pretty darn good. And here we are in some direct sunlight. I mentioned the dial being very subtly blue, and there you can see it right there. You kind of get these little glimpses of a pretty nice blue, like a royal blue color. But otherwise, it just looks like dark gray or black. So it's a very subtle blue, which was a little bit of a little surprise to me based on the product renders. I think they kind of exaggerated that blue a little bit. But otherwise, I think it looks really good. I do like the blue when it does catch there, and I think the texture on the dial also looks pretty cool. But it does. It just looks good. Looks really good. Very happy with it. Unfortunately, no straps for this one because of the integrated bracelet. So let's go back inside and get back to this review. All right, so let's talk about the case finishing on this. And the case finishing is actually pretty good. You can see on the bezel, the top of the bezel here, you have a vertical brushing that matches the vertical brushing of the actual case. You have polished on the sides of the bezel there. Really nicely done. Nice sharp transitions. I see no bleed over. Same with the actual case itself. You have a horizontal brushing across the sides of the case. Really nicely done. And I see no major issues with the case finishing on this. Really nice polished chamfer that runs from one lug tip to the other lug tip. And again, really nicely done. Pretty sharp transitions. No troubles with that. It looks great. It looks really good. I'm very happy with it. Sometimes on these integrated bracelet watches, or watches with a vertical brushing on the top like this, they can kind of get off skew a little bit. This one actually looks pretty darn good to me. Yeah, I don't see any issues with the case finishing on it. It's definitely a highlight of this watch. I think they did a really good job on it. Crown here, it's nicely signed, fully polished crown. A little bit big, not really big, but tall, I guess. It could be a little bit shorter, but yeah, nice and big and grippy. You got no issues with that. Flipping it over to the case back here, you see you've got kind of a satinized brushing on the bottom of the case. It's really an interesting choice, but it's the case. It's the back of the case. You never see it, so it's not a big deal. The case back itself, it's a screw down case back, simple notches to get a tool in. Display case back, we'll test this, but I'm pretty sure that's just mineral. Got your typical spec sheet around the outside. Nicely done, showing off that NH35. Not a very pretty movement, but some people like to look at it, me included. I don't care either way whether it has a display case back or not. I think it's perfectly fine. Everything here is nicely rounded, pretty soft edges. Yeah, pretty comfortable overall, and I'm pretty happy with it. All right, let's talk about the crystal. We'll test it for sapphire real quick. We've got a sapphire crystal. Testing the back crystal here, you can see it is mineral. So no surprises there. Flat sapphire crystal on the front. There is anti-reflective coating on it. It's a pretty light coating, but I've had no real issues with being able to read the time or anything like that. It does a pretty good job. You can see, I don't know, maybe right about there. You can see there's a slight, like a little blue hint to it. It's not intrusive at all. It's a nice crystal. I've got no issues with it. You can see there, it's pretty much flush with the bezel. Yeah, no issues with the crystal. I think it's perfectly acceptable, and I'm pretty happy with it. All right, let's get close. We'll talk about the dial on this thing. So the dials on these are pretty interesting. They have a kind of a vertical grain to them. Hopefully you guys can see that there. This is very subtle. I mean, this watch looks black, I'd say like 85% of the time. When the light catches it just right, you can kind of get a blue tint to it. It's a very dark blue. I think it's a really cool color, but I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit brighter than that. But I do like the vertical grain. I think it looks pretty cool. The dial itself, you've got the silver ring around the outside, which houses the minute track, nicely printed. You have applied indices at all the hour markers except 3 o'clock, which houses just a simple chamfered date window there. Date is nicely centered though, so I'm pretty happy with that. All the indices, they look to be applied pretty much spot on. I see no issues with alignment. The Pagani design logo is applied nicely, and then it's got the Pagani design text underneath it. I think it all looks pretty good. The handset, nice and simple, easy to read, big and bold handset, perfect length in my opinion. You can see it's just a simple flat handset. There's no chamfer or anything like that to it. I was a little worried that would look kind of cheap, but I really don't think it does. I think it looks pretty good. And it's all clean, nicely done, no fluff under the dial or anything like that. I've been very happy with the dial on this thing. I think it looks pretty good. The lume color on this during the day, I mean, it's so minimal in those indices that it just kind of blends in, and I don't see any mismatch of the lume really. I know the mismatch is there, just because that's typically what you see with Pagani design. There's a mismatch of the lume color, but like I mentioned, I mean, these little slivers, these indices, it's so small, such a small little area that you don't really notice it. The lume on this watch, I'm going to pop up a lume shot right now, and the lume is pretty bad on it. Not going to lie, it is one of Pagani's worst watches. They seem to be getting a little bit better, but this is definitely not the one. It fades pretty quickly. It's not really bright right off the bat either, and I mean, it's just not good. So don't depend on this for the lume. It's pretty bad. Definitely one of the weak points of the watch. Yeah, let's talk about the movement in this thing. And the movement has been pretty good for me. Got no issues with it. It's the Seiko NH35. I'm going to pop up the time grapher shot right here. And here's how you can see it's running. It's running really good. About 7 seconds fast a day. I've had no issues with accuracy on it. I've had no issues with the functionality of it. It works perfectly fine. So the movement is operated by this 3 o'clock screw down crown. Again, nicely signed, nice and big and grippy. You've got no issues with that. The screw out action is nice and smooth. Has a decent little pop out from the NH35. First position, hand winds it. Again, nice and smooth, no issues with that. Second position is your date. There you can see the alignment of the date. Pretty good. No issues with the alignment of the date. Third position, you pull it out and hacks the second hand. And this is where you set your time. Everything is nice and smooth. The hands don't jump or anything like that. It's the NH35. It's accurate enough. It's reliable enough. It's a workhorse movement. It's cheap to replace if you need to. Yeah, no issues with the movement at all. It's been great. Got no problems with it. The screw in action in the crown, nice and solid, and again, nice and grippy, no issues. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet of this thing. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, these integrated bracelet watches, you don't replace the bracelet on them, so you got to hope that they're pretty good bracelets. And I will say this watch bracelet is not bad, but it's not perfect. So I'd say we get right into it. Like I mentioned earlier, it's about 27 millimeters at the top here, 26.5 or so, and it tapers down to about 20 millimeters at the clasp. And the links are 2.7 millimeters thick. So the links are pretty thin, which is a good thing. Yeah, I like that. Overall, the bracelet is pretty fluid. You've got really nice finishing here. You got vertical brushing on the tops of the lugs here. Nice tight tolerances, so you don't get much rattle from this. There's a little bit, but not too bad. Yeah, brushing on the sides here. Nice brush chamfer along the edge there. I kind of wish they would bring this polished chamfer all the way onto the bracelet. I think that would look pretty good, but it doesn't look bad the way it is. The butterfly clasp here, it is signed with the Pagani design logo there, and it's just a simple butterfly clasp. I'm not a fan of them. No micro adjust or anything like that. This one is functionally perfectly fine. I've got no issues with the functionality of it. It's just that they don't allow for a great adjustment, and that's a problem because you don't get half links or anything like that. So getting a perfect fit on this is pretty tough. Thankfully, I was able to get a good fit. If Pagani or any company is going to be using a butterfly clasp, I would really prefer them to get half links. You don't get great fitment on these things all the time, and that's my main problem with butterfly clasps. Otherwise, it's perfectly fine. This bottom edge here is nice and rounded. It's a little bit sharp, but it's not as bad as I've seen before. And it's been pretty comfortable overall. It hasn't pulled any hairs or anything like that. My one main issue with it is, first off, the tops of this first link, which you do see quite often, they're just not the nicest finished, as you can see there. They just need a little bit extra. All the other links, they're hidden enough where you don't really notice it, but that first link, it sticks out, and you do notice it. My other issue with this is this first link, it doesn't pivot at all. You can see here, it's solid in there. And if you've got bigger wrists like me, you kind of get this weird kink in the bracelet here. So like, I would like this to pivot up a little bit more and kind of flow with my wrist. So it kind of has this weird little kink right here. And if you have smaller wrists, it's not going to be an issue. Even for me, I don't think it looks horrible. But it's definitely not ideal. I really wish they would somehow get this link to pivot just a little bit, and I think it would look a lot better. But again, I would say it's not a deal breaker. And if you have 7-inch wrist or maybe even 7.25-inch wrist, it's pretty much a non-issue. It's just when you get up to 7.5 or so where it becomes a problem. But other than that, though, I do like the bracelet. I think it's pretty comfortable, pretty fluid. So it has push pins for adjustment, and I had to remove 4 links from my 7.5-inch wrist, but you can see they've got plenty of links here. So yeah, I think the fitment on this should be pretty good for most people. And I think overall, you're going to be fairly happy with the bracelet on this thing, which is a good thing because you're not going to be able to replace it. So there you go, guys. That is the Pagani design PD1753, a newer release from Pagani. Really happy with it. Sorry it took me a little bit longer to get this review out. I've had the watch for a couple weeks now, and I've been enjoying it since then. But with the Christmas and the holidays and the New Year, I just wanted to take a little bit of time off and spend time with family and stuff. So Yeah, I really appreciate you guys. And we're going to keep on going in 2023. So Happy New Year. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And I will see you in the next one.